All right, I'm back. So here's the first one I want to talk about. So I had a client who was charged with a DWI. It's a drugged driving allegation. And then, they pull him out of the car after stopping him for some issue. I can't remember, weaving or something. But anyway, so what ended up happening was he got busted for drugs. There was a search. His person found drugs. They weren't his. They were pills. No prescription, okay? So that's kind of the fact pattern. So one of the things I like to do is challenge what's called the expansion of the scope of the stop. And what that means is, even if there's a reason for a cop to pull you over on the side of the road, they still have to have a reason to expand the scope of that stop, continue to detain you, or to investigate other matters that aren't kind of the reason for the initial stop. So that's what we're dealing with here. So we did that in this case. And what we said was, this client happened to be, he was trying to explain as best he could. Maybe he was nervous, but he was trying to explain himself to this cop who obviously had never met him before and had maybe his suspicions, raised because he's a cop and that's kind of what they do. But so he was trying to explain that, hey, I had just been here, I was going there. Let me show you, I'll give you my license, here you go. And the cop ended up thinking that this guy was drunk because he couldn't kind of give a coherent story, at least according to this cop. So we went into that, as the testimony progressed and we got more information from the cop about the search later, which yielded these pills, right, where he was charged with a felony subsequent. We ended up catching the cop in a lie. The judge said that it was no good. The cop had some issues about his credibility as a result. But ultimately, what ended up happening and why it's important for this video is that the judge gave me an order saying that the cop initially was not allowed to expand the scope of this traffic stop and kind of keep my client around for field sobriety testing and then this ultimate search. And so the result was that the prosecutor was forced to dismiss the case, including the felony drug case, because the cop made a mistake earlier on in the process, and that's called expansion. It's a Fourth Amendment analysis in case you're kind of curious, but those are ways that, for example, in my practice, we take a look and we challenge evidence to see if we can have a whole case thrown out even. So it doesn't happen every time, but it can happen. So the standard in order for an officer to continue to detain someone or expand the scope of a traffic stop is whether the officer has reasonable articulable suspicion that some other crime or criminal activity is happening or has just happened, okay? And so that's the analysis that the court always applies in these kinds of cases. But what I thought was really interesting was that the court can't really rely on what the officer is telling it. They're going to defer to this video that we had submitted in evidence. The court says that even though, while it's true that, an officer isn't supposed to necessarily believe every single thing that, a driver might tell them, they're also not allowed to disregard or just kind of ignore a perfectly valid explanation about where they're going or what they're doing. And that, in this particular case, was the whole reason why the officer was claiming to keep my guy around for this additional investigation. And so I thought it was an interesting order. Ultimately, like I said, the judge threw the case out, said that the state can't proceed using this kind of tainted evidence against my client in the drug case or the DWI, and so the state ultimately was forced to dismiss the entire thing. And so as a result, the good news is my client is not going to have this on the criminal record. It'll show as a dismissed case. And there's not going to be a separate driver's license impact, which was huge to this particular client because he was kind of burning the candle at all ends, trying to take care of parents and family and kids and everything else and work and trying to balance it all. So for him, keeping that license was essential, and we were able to get that done for him. So if you have any questions about what happened or how we can help in your case, give me a call, 612-339-5844. Otherwise, you can find me at ArrestedMinnesota.com. That's ArrestedMN, like Minnesota.com.